I received a question from the audience about metaphysics. Probably the most significant thing to note is that I've now recorded more than 1,000 videos on 1,000 different topics. And never once have I been asked anything to do with metaphysics. Never once until today have I been asked how my philosophy applies to metaphysics. I've never been asked what possible meaning the study of metaphysics has had in my life, right? And I think this really does reflect the profound triviality of metaphysics from a mature 21st century perspective. Now, if I were to engage in a critique of metaphysics, it would really be the habit of mind that becomes inculcated into us through metaphysics, rather than any particular posit. I would say that some assertions in metaphysics are so uncontroversial, so bland, that nobody bothers to dispute them. And then we cross over a dotted line where seemingly everything that's posited or disputed within metaphysics is such dangerous lunacy that it generally belongs in the province of religion, indeed even of religious fanaticism, and not of philosophy, not of politics. So to give an example of something very bland in metaphysics, but again, my warning would be to try to imagine the habits of mind you'd cultivate if you were really raised with this sort of education. Someone might say to you that we never see gravity. We see objects falling, we see the effects of gravity, but we never perceive gravity itself. But we can posit this prior entity, this real thing, whatever gravity truly is, out of sight, out of mind, to some extent unknowable, and to some extent something we can speculate about. And then they can start to talk about this metaphysical concept of gravity. Now, that's the sort of reasoning most people just do not bother to object to. And it slips into madness and lunacy when they say something to you like, well, you can see the effects of intelligence. Right? In the same way that you see things falling and you then infer or impute this thing called gravity. Well, you see someone doing intelligent things, you see someone acting intelligent, but then there is this real entity. There is this reality of whatever intelligence is. That's something quite different from its particular effects, its particular behaviors. Oh, well, you feel you know this person, you feel you know their personality, but then there's this metaphysical notion of the soul, right? Something prior to and something more real than, some transcendental super thing. It's not really just a thing, it's a super thing that only exists through our inference and imputation. And of course, the greatest metaphysical football of them all is the Judeo-Christian God. Like, oh, well, you just see the universe, but there was this thing before the universe. Now, why is this so rarely asked about or worth debating? If you met someone who was really into kind of cosmological theoretical physics, like someone who's really into theories about gravity and the origin of the universe, and you deadpan serious said to them, well, given what we know about the existence of the universe, there must be something prior to the universe. And then this person wants to refer to this as God. It would just be laughably meaningless. I mean, if you make this inference, if you make this imputation, there's no connection between that notion of God and the book, written in ancient Greek called the New Testament. Yes, by the way, the New Testament was written in Greek, not Hebrew. Deal with it. It wasn't written in Aramaic either, Well, you have this kind of, literary tradition starting in ancient Greek with these stories, and it's concerned with the Roman Empire conquering Jerusalem and, the temple and the politics and, moral questions. There is just no reason why you connect it to this notion of abstract physics. Now, in terms of the essentializing tendency of mind here that people train themselves in if they revere metaphysics and metaphysical thinking, it might seem harmless for you to look at intelligence and then think there is this thing that truly is intelligence. Look at the person and then think there is this thing called the soul. There's this essence of who the person really is. I eat food, Some number of hours later, I go to the bathroom. I never see digestion, right? What is this true thing? What is this metaphysical concept of digestion that exists prior to and outside of our merely physical knowledge of digestion? There's absolutely no reason to think this is something meaningful, inspirational, significant, or even worth debating. Digestion is an abstraction. Abstractions contain less information than particulars. That's all it is. These concepts, the soul, intelligence, even gravity, the riddle you're playing with, it's like a game of solitaire, you're dealing with cards, is just that you're playing with abstractions and then wanting to believe that those abstractions are more real than the real things they describe or they summarize. Right? And they're not. The reality is, empirically, we see things falling and we generalize and talk about gravity. It's a generalization, it's an abstraction, right? We see people doing intelligent things and we describe them as intelligent people, and we think about intelligence, and intelligence is just an abstraction, right? Intelligence is less real, not more real than what we can empirically observe. So the storied history of metaphysics, from my perspective, should end with this century, the 21st century, in the same way that the practice of circumcision should end with this century. All it is taking a fundamentally superstitious frame of mind and kind of painting it with the colors of proper science or proper philosophy. It can never lead us to any conclusions about anything other than the psychology of human stupidity. Maybe we can practice.